Okay, apologies for the last part. We had a bit of trouble with the audio. We lost the wireless microphone, dropped out on us. Anyway, hopefully be back to normal now. Tornado, pretty much looking the part now. We're going to give it some more weathering. We've got to put the exhaust on, a few more little touches yet. But what we want to do is really bring the parts together. So next up, we've got to do the metal areas. One of those things, different references, different lighting, things like that. There's so many different shades. Sometimes it looks quite steely, sometimes it looks very sort of much like aluminium, other times it's quite almost a bronzy colour from the heat, and obviously there's different types of heat on there and patterning and things like that. What I'm going to go with is using the burnt metal. The idea is, as you can see, it's got this sort of bronziness to it, but when you shake this stuff up, this is Model Master burnt metal colour, okay, but when you shake it up, you see how it's changed now and gone to this other colour. So it's just one of those things. It's obviously got quite a heavy pigment, but I'm hoping we'll be able to use that in our favour. Now this is a lacquer based paint, so what we've actually done, we've swilled out and blown through into the airbrush, through the colour cut, everything, a little bit of cellulose thinners. That's basically because we always use an acrylic normally, and if you just switch one to the other, you could have a few problems. So we got that, we've got a little pipette, because pouring this stuff is absolute nightmare. Now, a lot of people will tell you that you'll need to obviously and prime up your paintwork and everything else like that. I'm not too worried about it, if we're honest. I'm pretty happy just to spray this one on directly, but what we need to do is, obviously because it's not primed at all, is just take your time with it and build it up as you go. Okay, so we're just going to do a nice little light coat. As you can see, it's got that nice sort of metal sheen to it. Now we're not having these open, but we're going to do down the sides to make sure you've got it covered from all the angles. Okay, but as you say, just a light coat. This isn't a buffing type or anything else, but hopefully it'll work quite well, where by the time it's had a little bit of a wash over it, just to grime it down and things like that. Okay, so coming in again, if it's looking too bronzy, what we can actually do is obviously switch to a different shade and just give it one little pass over the top. Okay, but as you can see, it doesn't take much. You're literally putting on a very fine coat over this, quite a heavy one on the bottom because nobody's going to see that, but on the top here, as you can see, one pass, then we're going to go back over it. Alright, and then we're just going to come in with this one. Now, as it's a metallizer, just be a little bit more careful with it and making sure you're happy. So what we're going to do, we're happy with how that is, so we're just going to pour the last of that away, if we can get it out, just a tiny bit, a few drops left in here. Okay, blow through what we've got. Not even going to clean that out for a minute because we're going to change colour, we can go straight on the top. But what we need to do is check our hands, make sure we haven't got any on there, because obviously we don't want to transfer it to the model. We're just going to come along now and we're going to just place this literally in just to see what's going on with it, how it's looking, will the colour match up and things like that. And I don't think actually that's too far off. I'm quite happy if we find the correct one for the side. I think that's going to work quite well down there. I can't see that being too much of a problem. As I say, it's one of those things, sometimes you look at these and you think, you know, pretty much spot on. Got to find the right one for it. I think this is the one for it. They're all around the different ways. No, it's definitely that one. Okay, but he's going to fit in just in here like that. I'm quite happy. I think by the time it has a bit over there, if you weren't happy, and just to show you, obviously you can just pick your other colour. So you want a darkish colour on this one. So if we use the exhaust colour, which is a bit of a pain to get out here, we got the exhaust colour, and if you look at it, it's quite a metallic. So if you thought that was a little bit strong, okay, what we're going to do, just going to shake that one up, and we're just going to tint the colour. Okay, so literally just going to take a little bit of this, only going to need a few drops. Okay, and then you can actually overcoat the original. So we're just going to check our flow, and what we're going to do is literally going to pass a shade over, and we've tinted it, hopefully you can see, and just changed it. We haven't massively changed it. If we find the equivalent on the other side, but hopefully you can see now, we've just when you catch it in different lights and things like that, you can see how we've changed the tint. So I quite like that tint. So what we're going to do is go over, and because it is literally just a form of plating over, we can just knock these back. If you didn't like it, obviously you could go again with the original colour. Okay. And then obviously you've got various shades. If you wanted to put in your hot colours like your blues and different things like that, you could do that. We might do something like that afterwards, but generally looking, and they don't have that blue big thing hitting through, but generally I'm very happy with how these colours are now, pretty much spot on for what we wanted. So we've got that sort of metallic-y type of colour in there, but without it just being a grey or that quite strong colour. So something in between, which works very, very well. So what we're going to do is just let those dry off, clean out the airbrush, and as they're drying we can actually start on some more weathering, because we've got to weather up things like the wheel wells, the insides of the speed brakes, because obviously they're looking very sharp and white and everything else, and also we can paint up the top parts of the cockpit. Okay, so with the thrust buckets done, one little thing I have noticed, you can see down here on the close-up, where we've got the actual hook coming off, when you look at the actual the part itself, you can actually see it doesn't quite go in. If we do it with this one, which I haven't done it to, when you stick this in, you've got it and it sort of goes over and doesn't lean in and anything else like that. So what you need to do is just carefully nick this corner. Now it has got a little, you might be able to see a little square here. That's the little guy you just need to nick off. Now I don't know in real life if it's a little flap or what it is, but if you just come along with a blade and just nick that little guy off. Okay, be careful with the silver. As you can see, it comes off being metallizer, but what that does, it enables you to get a little door just round it now and gives you a perfect fit. But without it, it is a little bit of a messy joint. Now, usual thing, metallizers, people say you can't use obviously hot glues. You can, it's just you have to be extremely careful. So you just literally touch and leave. Okay, we just do one down here, a bit too much on there. We're going to touch and leave, because what it will all rack up and change, but hopefully it will go back. Okay, and it will dry back its natural state. Okay, so that's those in just like that. Okay, looking the part, so I've got to be a bit careful with sort of silver paint. Alright, so we can put these on the bottom, no problem at all. The top ones we're going to leave off, because what we've got to do is actually put on that thrust reverser, very distinctive black smoky trail. So we're going to do that with actually black wash. We're going to let those dry just for a couple of minutes, but I wanted to show you about cutting that hole out, flip it over, and then we can do that distinctive smoky trail up there, because obviously what we want out of the way is the thrust reverser buckets. No point having them down and doing it, because they would never have it on that side, because traditionally they'd be up. So we'll put that in, be happy with that, we can overcoat it, and then what we'll actually do is come back and fit those actually onto it. Okay, with those bits on there, we've actually installed, as you can see, the air brake system. And as you probably see, the colour difference, that's what your weathering does. That's our original grey we started with compared to what we've got now, and the original green. So you can see, it's one of those things, you don't notice these layers as you build them up. So by doing the fading and the things, and then obviously you've got things like we went in there with the post shading and the weathering wash, all give that nice grime effect. So you can see the difference to what we've got, especially here. You know, this one is a great indicator of how much, you know, work's gone on and how far you've come with all your weathering. We need those in there because obviously we're going to come along and we're going to give it a bit of that tornado exhaust. They're very, very prone to it. Obviously the reverse bucket system comes back and closes like this, which fires it obviously downwards and upwards, and obviously it scoots up through that tail. Depending on last time it was washed, age of the vehicle, you know, and everything else, depends on how this is. It's a real personal thing. There's no right and wrong to this. You could have it really dirty, or you could just come in and have a light layer. Because it's something where you could easily get it wrong, shall we say, we're going to use the clay wash. So the idea is we're just going to use the black Flory Models wash, okay, purely because if it doesn't look right or you don't like it at any point, you can take some off, okay. If you don't like it at all, you can take it all off and just start again, all right. So usual thing when you're using the wash through an airbrush, obviously make sure that it hasn't got anything like cellulose thinners in it or anything left over in there. It needs to be nice and clean in there. So this has had a complete wash out. Okay, and we're just going to put in not much of the black wash just in here like this. We will need something just down to protect as we spray this over, just to stop the work surfaces getting absolutely caked in it. Okay, so what we're going to do is aim for something. Okay, so it's always best if you've got a reference picture, and to be honest, off screen I've got a reference picture of a tornado, okay, and it shows it, and it's quite a mild type of look to it, but it has got that type of griminess. So what we're going to do, if we can get hold of it, okay, just like this, a bit of a haphazard way of doing it, but we're basically going to try and aim for as it is in real life. So you've got your riveting detail, you might be able to see there, we catch them in the light. That's the type of angle we're going for. So we're starting back here and it's going to shoot up. So we're just going to check our flow, how it's coming through, and then what we're going to do is literally wispy blows up. Okay, so we've got a little bit on there, and then all we're going to do is literally dry that back. And as you can see, it'll all disappear. Going very, very nicely. We angle it down just a little bit more. Okay. Dry it all back. It basically disappears, and then we're just going to come in. We're going to do a nice big spray of it again, and we're going to dry it back. And this is all we're going to do. We're going to do one after the other. Blow down, dry back. And to be honest, we can probably get rid of that to give us this smoked and warm look to it. Okay, as we're sort of going around with this. Okay, so that's another layer. So what we're going to do is aim down, and then we're just going to blow it up. But you don't want it too wet, you want it nice and dry. Okay, so we're just drying it down again. Dry it all completely off, okay, and then another blast and dry down. And this is the beauty about this, we can just work it up as much as we want. And now we're getting it down there, so we're just drying back. You can see the wetness and just drying it off. This is just air. So we're sort of coming along and bringing in this very dark sort of look to it. Okay, now all we're going to do is just going to come in the middle area, and all we're doing is a little bit in the middle and a bit more in the middle, and we're just putting layer after layer, drying down. Okay. That's a little bit more around now. And now we've got a good layer down there, we can really ramp it up a little bit. Nice big layer down there. Okay, this is just air, drying it down, drying it down. A little bit close, we don't want it spidering. Lots of it now. Because what it is, when it's got a coat on there, you can actually flood it. Okay, so we're just going to dry it down. Okay, just there, just on this nose section. So we end up with our smoky line just like so. So when you compare it to obviously the other side, nothing at all. And then we've got it on here. So, you know, obviously if this bucket was reversed, it would be in something like this position, okay, which would be blowing it all up that tail. So literally you can do it how you want. So we're just going to pop that in like that. So that's that one locked in and it's done. Now obviously you could then weather this and streak it. One of the techniques for doing this is to literally grab a dry brush and you can physically scrape and dry brush this stuff off. just like so, okay, to give you that sort of more weathered look. The other thing you can do, if you wet your brush very lightly, now scrape it off, you can streak it, the dirt going back off of this blown area, a little bit more off, to give us this type of effect, as if it's going all over it. Okay, you can see we've got a little bit on the tail now appearing and everything else like that. Okay, we're just going to take a little bit off this front of the tail, and we're just going to run it everywhere. All we're trying to do is get it off the front of this tail, as if it's got, you know, this stuff's been washed off, it's been through water and it's just running around. Okay, and everything just like that. So we've got that on there, we just draw it back. So we've got that type of streaking going on there, just like that. So we're going to do exactly the same for the other side. Have a look at it. If we don't like it too much, obviously we can knock it back a little bit, use a dry cloth and just literally scrub at it. So if the other way, of course, is a cotton bud, it might be easier because it's more localized, so we can sort of do it like this. Okay, so this is a dry cotton bud, and all we're doing is back and forth, because obviously we want to make sure we are in that direction as we're going over, and then obviously wet your cotton bud, back of your hand, okay, very lightly, because you don't want to take too much with it. We can go around doing more scrapey marks and drags and everything down there to give our tornado that sort of weathered in, smoked tail look. So there we go, that was done. We're going to do exactly the same for the other side, okay? Then we're going to give this a scrub wash all of the way over using the airbrush cleaner technique, just to give us some more grime, some more heavy dirty weathering and everything else like that, okay? And then we're going to come around, flat coat the entire thing once again, just to seal all this weathering in and everything else like that. Then we can bring it together. Okay, so looking really, really nice now. As you can see, we have the speed brakes up with our exhaust staining. It's nothing massively over the top, but hopefully it'll bring it in. But as you can see, those speed brakes up and dirty. We've still got to paint, obviously the white, got to grime it up a little bit. We'll do with ink, and we're going to do a little bit of silver work on there. Pretty straightforward. So what we will do is, we will literally just grab something a little bit shiny. So a little bit of aluminium. I'll say we're using metallizers purely because they're just so nice to use. So we're just going to grab a little bit on the brush here, and then being a metallizer, it's pretty straightforward. What we're actually going to do is just literally let the capillary action do 90% of the work. Okay, so if you just touch, it will flow all around, so you've just got to be a bit careful up to the ends. Okay, remember to do your bottoms, and that puts that in there really nice. So we just do the other side. Okay, so usually you can get away with just touching both sides of it and let the capillary action zip all the way around, and that's the nice thing with metallizers. And then what we'll do, we'll come back and we'll actually do a little bit of ink wash right over those actual piston area themselves, just to darken them up, so it's the same way as we did the actual insides of the bays themselves. Okay, but that's those in there looking really nice, and obviously we've got those doors on the top now, those thrust reverser door buckets on there, and obviously the underside I've just weathered them up just a little bit. So actually all we did was the wash over the top and then give them a little bit of a scrub. A couple other things we've done down here on the front, we've actually painted in the cockpit area, so very nice in there. Just got a bit of silver on my finger, I'm just having to worry about. Okay, so we've done that, we've installed one of the seats, we can install the second one. Let me just get rid of this. Things like this you have to be careful of, because you don't realise you've got it, and then before you know it, you've actually, you know, got it on your other fingers or on your model, and to try and get rid of something like that is particularly nasty to do. Anyway, we'll pop the seats in. So we've got our other seats. As I said, really, I think the way we've livened these up and taken care of it is pretty good. So actually what you've got is one little hole down in there. It's quite a weak job, okay, but it suffices and does our thing. So you just need to find that hole, okay, and then stick it in just like that, and that gives us our cockpit in there. Now originally I was thinking about having the cockpit open and displayed and everything else like that. Now I'm thinking I'm probably going to go with it closed, purely because it's just the way that the actual Tornado looks. I quite like the look of it when it is in the closed position, so that helps out nicely. Now it's had a flat coat all over it already, it just hasn't had one down this back end. But what I want to do is I want to have a look at this front end and just see how the actual canopy has fitted on and everything else like that. So what we're going to do is just going to put a blade in there and lift these off just to see what we've got. Okay, so we're just going to pop a blade underneath, hooking the tape, okay, and then up, and then the same. And the idea with that is, the thing is, if you try and go in there and drag it up with your finger, something else like that, what can happen is you can actually smudge the film actually down onto it. Okay, so we'll just do this half and we're just going to come onto the inside. And to be honest, I've already pre-scored this. I've gone around with the blade, just cutting the edges of the tape so we don't end up peeling it off anywhere. Okay, so we can have a look. I've got a tiny little bit of dust down in there. You might be able to see just there, but I think we should be able to get that out quite easy. So if we just pop a little brush down in here, we'll give it a blow. Sometimes a blast of air will actually get things like that out, but all it is a little fleck of plastic in there. But as you can see now, that's our cockpit looking very much the part and everything else like that. Really happy, actually, for a straightforward out of the box build like this. This is really looking the part, absolutely fantastic. So that's that done. So now we can go over it and just give it a straightforward little scrub. The idea of giving it a scrub is you're just trying to give it texture and bring it that three-dimensional, i.e. if you've got an area where water would run or perhaps flow, so we're talking flaps, slats, all over the body, everything else like that, it can go in. Sometimes it works better than others. So from our point of view, all we've got here is some acrylic airbrush cleaner, okay? We're just gonna put a little spot down on the patting mat just down here, a couple of clean Q-tips or your cotton buds, dab it in, roll it all over, okay, and then all we're going to do is give this a rub over. Now don't forget, the wash is on top, so it will take the wash away, so we just go in the back of the hand, taking some off, alright, and then all we're going to do is literally run it up and down. You can see you get the dirt on here, but the idea is it will give texture to how it flows and everything on here. So we're just trying to cause as much even pattern as you can. So you want to cover it all, okay, and you can just literally drag it off. Now on the wing section here, we're going to just do a sort of back and forth movement, okay, we're just scrubbing through, and the idea is everything will go that way now. Okay, now again we do on the leading edge on the slats, and all what it'll do is it will just change slightly the texture. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a little bit of paint coming off now and a little bit of everything else. We're going to grab a little bit more. Okay, going all over it. Hopefully, as you can see, as it's drying, you're getting a little bit of patchiness, okay, caught in this texture. Now obviously it's still drying back, so if we just cut to air and dry this down, but hopefully you can see, dry that off, that's worked quite nicely actually. Hopefully you can see we've got this sort of texture in here. Okay, then the idea is it just looks like it's got drag back marks and everything else. So what you can do that is everywhere. Because obviously you've got a flat coat down there, it will protect anything. You're not going to have to worry about anything getting sort of ripped off. The only areas I wouldn't do with it is obviously down this back end, because we've got this exhaust area going in. That decor is a little bit shiny, so we're going to go over those, but we're going to blow that in after this technique's done, purely so it's totally handleable and you're not going to worry about it. I'm not going to do the front because the front doesn't need it. We're all happy how all of that is, so we can easily just give that a blow down the back and not worry about any overspray down this end. Our part as well, because this canopy is going to be fitted on, okay, if I can get it in there like so, okay, because we're having the canopy in and fitted like this, we don't have to worry so much about the actual bar system that goes in. If you want to pop it in, obviously you can, but if you don't want to, then obviously it's personal choice. But I'm quite happy with the way this one is in the closed position. I'm going to have it as a loose fit anyway, so you can take it up and down exactly how you like. But there we go, that's it in there just like that. Really happy of how it's turned out and how it's looking. Okay, so once it's all properly in there, let's get that side seated. It should be absolutely fine. As you say, when it's in there like that, it's a nice crystal clear canopy. You can see all the bits and pieces going on in there, looking really, really nice. So what I'm going to do now is give it a scrub right the way over it, mainly across the top, not so much down the back, but certainly down the back end though. We'll give it a little bit of a scrub down here and things like that, just to liven it up. When that's done, all I'm going to do is give it a flat coat, the same way as we did before with the deckling, just over this back end, just to fix in this weathering down the back, purely in case it gets wet or something else like that, or someone grabs it, you can end up with a fingerprint. We can weather in these back, the hydraulic rams there for the speed brakes, get them sorted out and fitted in, and then we can really start bringing it together, putting all the little bits in. We get the gear doors on, the pylons on, and getting near the final reveal.